Hi, Beth here. Let's do a short practice together with no props, unless you want a blanket. You can take a blanket if you want to put under your head, but we're going to start lying down like this. I have Sawyer in the studio with me. As long as no birds or cats or squirrels or anything go by, we're fine. He'll be quiet in his bed. So come into the constructive rest pose where you're lying on your back and you've got your feet a little bit further away from you, so they're not tucked up close to you. They're back here, and you can soften through the front of your hips. So they're hip flexors. If you feel right in here, you can see whether they're engaged or not. And if you lift one leg, most likely you will feel the psoas pop up into your hand and pop up into your other hand. So we want those to be quiet. So feet go away to let that happen. And then we can get a sense that the pelvis is level. And I'm basically lining up my pubic bones right here with my two front hip bones, the ASIS. And I want to just stay here just for a few moments and tune in to just being here and being here with the shape of my body. If you're okay closing your eyes, go ahead and close your eyes. If you are okay with tuning into your breath, just notice how your breath is this morning, the quality of it, or this afternoon, or whenever you're doing this practice. I like to notice where in my body breath is moving. Also helps me to fully arrive in the space and fully arrive in the frame of mind for my practice. So I am experiencing my mind in my body instead of my mind drifting off to all of the other things that I was thinking about before I got here. And now coming back to this level pelvis idea, keeping your feet where they are, just very slowly start to take your legs away from each other. Again, noticing your pelvis. We want to try to keep pelvis level. So noticing the range of motion that you have. You can even come and bring your knees towards each other in the center. And feel free to adjust where your feet are. I'm just still keeping them in that soft place because doing this action, my hip flexors should not need to engage. My left side often wants to engage here. So we're taking movement back to more of the subtle to start. That's why I like to close my eyes because I can tune in a little bit more with what is going on that subtle level. My pelvis is staying level. And I can notice that my left leg can go further than my right. So I'm going to let it and still keep my pelvis level. Exploring the range of motion in this direction. Also want to pay attention to see if I've changed my breathing at all, or if I'm gripping or bracing anywhere. And I want to go to the next level, keeping my pelvis level. So I'm going to take both legs over towards the right. A little bit harder task because my pelvis wants to tip, my spine wants to turn that way. But I'm going to say no to that for now. I will let my feet turn over onto the sides. I'm going to see, is it possible to do this? And for me, I'm noticing that to do this and keep my pelvis level, I start recruiting my core muscles to stabilize my pelvis and my low back, my spine. Not a big movement, and I will let you move more. In fact, you can move more at any time you want. It's just to kind of get a sense of what's possible. And so now let's take it so that legs go to one side, and then you can turn your pelvis and see how your rib cage turns. I'm going to, for now, keep my shoulders and my shoulder blades on the floor and take my arms out wide. I'm just going to explore the range of motion that still allows me to keep my shoulders on the floor. and then lift up. So I'm moving from my legs to start and take them over to the other side. And then use my legs to come back up. And I'm going to change that in a second. So one more on each side like this. Really great way to warm up through your spine, through your legs, through your hip joints, but also to bring awareness on a more subtle level. Okay, so now when you take your legs over to the first side, legs go, pelvis turns, belly turns, my rib cage turns a little bit, and my shoulders stay where they are. Then to come back, so pause here for a moment, come back starting with what last turn. So now I'm going to turn my rib cage, turn my belly, turn my pelvis, and then let my legs follow. So it's just a different order of operation. Same thing going over to the other side. So legs go first, pelvis turns, belly turns, rib cage turns, but I still keep my shoulders down, and then pause for a moment. And then going back, I turn my ribs I'm going back to the right, towards the right, my belly towards the right, my pelvis towards the right, and then my legs come up last. So do a couple more on each side in your own pace. It's like slow motion windshield wipers. But I want you to notice, I'd like for you to notice that different things are happening when you go like this than when you typically do, if you typically do windshield wipers. We will, just for contrast, do that at the end. So you're coming back using your turning muscles, your oblique muscles. One more time on each side. Last one for me. And then let's go into full-fledged moving. Let it flow, let your shoulder blades go, windshield wipers. And what you can add are your arms. And as your legs go one side, you can take your arms and your shoulders and your head to the other side. Or your head doesn't have to follow your arms, it can follow your legs. So we're now doing a ringing through the whole body. And it feels good. For me, it feels good. But I'm certainly not using the subtle movement that I was at the beginning. So it's different, and it's valuable as well. And then come back into the center. Release your arms, and we'll go a different direction. Bring your feet a little bit closer to you, and start to tip your pelvis backwards and forwards. So as if it's a bowl, and you're tipping the contents towards your belly button, and then you're tipping it towards your feet. Think of pouring the bowl out. Forward and back. You can add in a little bit of action. Instead of tipping from your pelvis, can you get your feet to do the movement? And what I mean by that is if I try to pull my feet towards me without letting them move, I can tip my pelvis forward. Or so, yeah. And then if I push my feet away, I can tip my pelvis back. So as I pull my feet towards me, I arch my low back. And as I push my feet away from me, my low back moves towards the floor. So I'm starting to engage the backs of my legs as well, and hamstrings. Nice little massage. It's not a big movement. And then we can add on to this. As you push your feet away, your low back moves into the floor. Start to just lift your pelvis off the floor just about an inch, and then come back. And breath, you can tie breath into this if you haven't already, meaning if you're holding your breath, good idea to breathe. And I'm not going to direct you as to which breath to use for which movement. I'd like you to explore. And then let's carry on. And as you roll back into the low back, start to lift your pelvis off and keep going. Keep going, keep going, keep going, peeling the back of your body off the floor until you come to your shoulders. If you have a pillow under your head and you're finding that your chin is dropping towards your chest and your neck is flattening out, maybe remove that pillow and just be a little bit aware of lifting your chin to keep your neck more neutral. And then we'll lower down. And then we'll go up again. So push and pull your feet. I'm pushing my feet away as I come up higher. And then roll back down. I can pull my feet towards me. I'm going to add something. I don't know if I have the room here, but as you start to go up, lift your arms as well. Boom. That's as far as I can go. Actually, I can shift forward a little bit more. So arms up when hips go up. And still not enough space. Maybe now. Last time, lift your arms up, lift your pelvis up, and keep your arms there. There we go. Now we're going to lengthen and stretch through the latissimus dorsi in the back of the body. So very slowly roll down through your spine, lengthening through the sides of the body, through your waist, through your low back. I'm still taking my time going down. This is slow and controlled. I like actually having the wall here. And then I finally land. I'm going to keep holding my arms out, stretching them, stretching through the sides of the body and the back of the body. Take a few breaths here, feeling long through my torso. This is what I want to feel when I come to downward dog, which is coming up soon. That's why I do like having the wall here. Okay, so now bring your arms down, roll over to one of your sides, and come up. And when you come up, you can set your hands up. I'm going to go this way for you. Maybe I'll go this way because I think I'll fit on the screen. Set up your hands so that they're shoulder distance apart and that your fingers are spread evenly. And what I mean is they're not like this, but they're just kind of an even distance apart from each other. And then lay your forearms down. I take my baby fingers right to the edge of my mat. And when I lay my forearms down, I look at the relationship between my wrist or my arm and my hand. And I want to find an evenness on this side because there's bones here, space in the middle here between the hand and the bones of the forearm. And I don't want to be pinching anything that runs through that space. So I want to line up my hands like this so that they're in line with my forearms. Then when I lift my arms up, hey, voila, it's aligned. And then the other thing I like to do is think of the center of my palm, or the palm around the rim of my palm is like the edges of a suction cup. And I want to root down all the way around, but not in the middle. So I come back to laying my forearms down, rooting around the edges, and then the final piece is pressing my fingerprints, including my thumbs, into the floor, then lifting up elbows. Then pause here and notice what it feels like the moment just before you're going to lift your knees off the floor. Feel that toning that you have in your abdomen without gripping or bracing. So keep breathing and then lift your knees without adding more. Slowly take your knees and your hips backwards and up. And we'll do this a couple of times. Come up into downward dog and then come back down. And instead of landing your knees on the floor, just keep them hovering so you get that sense of toning. We stay weighted in 4 parts of the body. I'm not trying to get my heels down onto the ground. I'm just processing and working through this transition, pivoting around my shoulders, pivoting around my hips, pivoting through my knees. One more time. And then we'll hold downward dog for a moment and notice where your weight is in your hands. If you've really shifted to feel like there's a lot of weight in the outer wrist, which is pretty typical, add a little bit more weight into your index finger base and your thumb. That's going to ask your forearms to roll in a little bit, which might ask your shoulders, your upper arms to roll in. So you have to come back and be strong with this movement, this counter movement of the upper arms to the lower arms. We'll do that another day. Stay tuned for that. Put it in your comments of this video if you want to see more about downward dog. I got pages and pages and pages of stuff I can offer you. Okay, so slowly come down onto your knees. That was a long time on your wrists. So I'm going to have you come now, bring your forearms down and interlace your hands. So we'll rest on forearms. My forearms are as wide as my shoulders. I'm not going to let them slide any wider. And then walk your one foot back, then the other foot back. So we'll do a plank pose, or a plank pose on forearms. And then just kind of play a little bit with a pushing forward action and a back action. And again, I come into the wall. Forward and back. So we get off our wrists. We start to work through the body a little bit more. Let's do 2 more. And then we'll hold somewhere in between. I'm going to say most of us will need a little bit more pushing back than pushing forward. Notice where your pelvis is in space, and if it's dropping towards the floor, you'll probably be feeling some compression in your low back. If we push down through the elbows, not just the hands, you can get an opening through your upper back. Okay, I think that's enough, don't you? Knees down, hands down. Let's just take left foot forward. Take it wherever it is and move it forward. If you need a blanket can go under your right knee here. Then come on up. I've got my back toes tucked, and I'm going to move forward and back. What I'm looking for when I'm moving forward and back is keeping my knee tracking over the center of my foot, center of my ankle, and towards, I'm going to say, my second and third toes. If I take my left hand, I've got my left leg forward, my left hand to the outside, then I can use that as a guide to make sure that I'm not letting my knee wander towards the center, which is a tendency for me, for sure. So as I do this, I also want to check in with the rhythm I have through my body and the relationship I have between my pelvis and my rib cage. I'm going to start lifting my arm up and back down. If you've got this figured out, you can take both arms. Just kind of noticing whether I'm breaking the rhythm somewhere between my pelvis and my rib cage, something like this. And let's do one more. And hold. Ah, feels so good. One last time. And then hands come down. Oh, live video. It's fun. Tuck your toes under, lift up, downward dog. Find that awareness in your hands, the action in your hands, and the length in your spine. And then when we come down, you can come from downward dog, but I really like the idea of just shifting here and bringing my foot forward, doing it with a little bit more subtle awareness, subtle movement, and then come back up. Come forward and back. Now here my hand is here. Poor Sawyer. He's snoring. Forward and back. Getting used to having my leg just pressing into my hand to keep it guiding in this direction. And then you can add your other arm in. And if you've got that figured out, it's not leaning towards the center, you can add both arms. Watch for the rhythm between your pelvis and your rib cage. And let it be a smooth line. No feeling of compression anywhere. Okay, last one. And we'll hold. Feels so good. And then come back down. Take your hands back down. Tuck your toes under. Set your hands up with care. The moment just before your knees hover, notice, and then shift back and up. We'll spend a couple of breaths in downward dog. Maybe even bend one knee, then the other. Okay, come back down onto your knees. Now we're going to turn. So come up, you might want a blanket under your knees, and turn to your right. If you need to, you can change your mat. I've got the crisscross mats, which I like when I'm practicing. So on your knees, I'm going to walk over to the right and lift up my left leg. So I'm going to go here and here. Now it's not meant to be perfectly perpendicular to my body. I'm going to let my leg go where my pelvis and my legs say my leg should go. I do want to keep this leg facing forward. So that's kind of my guide. This thigh is here. My pelvis turns away from this leg, and then my leg turns away from my pelvis. So it's going to be wherever it is. Then walk your foot out. And you can get a nice little stretch through the top of the foot. See what that feels like. If it's too much, lift your foot up a little bit or put a blanket in front of it. And then reach out, start to slide down. And I'm going to have my back of my hand on my leg here. So I'm not leaning on my leg. Slide down and rotate your rib cage towards the right. And then come back up. So we'll do that a couple of times. As I slide down, I want to be aware that I'm not just pressing into the back of my knee, that it's almost like I've got a kickstand or a tent pole underneath the back of my knee, keeping it up as I go down. So I go down and rotate. One more time. Down, rotate. Take your top arm lifted up. It can always stay on your waist. And then reach it over the side towards the left. Then come back up. Turn your entire right leg now so that the side of your foot, the inside edge of your foot, is on the ground. So just one more variation. And walk it out to wherever it's comfortable. Wherever it works for you. Now lift up. Same idea, come down this way and lean over. So slightly different place to work in the body. And one more breath here. Come down, bring your right hand down. I don't have a lot of space, as usual, so I'm going to move my leg. And then lift up your top leg. So you're on your right knee, left leg comes up, and bring your top arm up towards the sky. So we're lifting this leg up using the outer hip muscles to hold that leg in space. Okay, then bring it back down. Come back up. Bring your leg back in. Turn, let's come into downward dog. Set up your hands, activate your arches, and then up you go. Any movement here. Maybe hips from side to side. You get to play with it. What do you want to do? What do you feel like you need to do today? And then slowly come back down. I don't often like to use the word comfortable in teaching because I kind of feel like we need to put ourselves a little bit outside of our comfort zone in order to grow, in order to feel something different. Okay, so now we'll go the other side. Now that I've turned around. So I'm shifting over to the left, lifting my right leg up and taking it out to the side. My left leg is now facing forward. My pelvis turns away from my left leg. So that same idea, I don't want to be twisting in my knee here. I'm going to keep this where it is, but turn my pelvis away from it. So if I had my hand here like we did in the lunge, that would be a good guide. But it's harder to do the pose that way. So pelvis turns, leg turns, and then you walk it out. If you want to feel that stretch to the top of the foot and it doesn't feel like you're compromising your ankle, you can keep your foot down, but you can also lift it up. Flip your right hand over and start to slide down and then rotate away. And then come back up. So we can do that at the same time. Slide and rotate. And back up. Again, I'm watching what's happening with my right leg. I want to be mindful that I'm not just pressing down into the back of my knee. Slide and turn. And one more time, slide and turn. Take your top arm up. Oh, it feels so nice. And then come back up. Turn your entire leg. So now it's a slightly different variation. And we go down and lift up. And then slowly come back. And I do mean slowly. Coming out matters as much as coming into the pose. Okay, let's do one more downward dog. Set your hands up. Breathe. Notice before you lift your knees and then lift them and then shift. So we're not throwing the body up into downward dog. We're going to take our time here. Put a little bit of space between your feet, enough space for the length of one of your feet. And then take both heels towards the right. So it's a swiveling action. And so my hips go to the right. And then come back into the center and swivel both heels over to the left. So both knees face towards the right. We'll do that one more time each side. Gets longer and longer, this dog, when you're doing this. And then come back into the center. We'll finish coming down onto our knees and into a variation of child's pose. So you can go legs together and hips go back. You can go legs a little bit wider and hips go back. But if you find, you know what, I really don't care for this pose. It hurts my ankles, or it hurts my knees, or it hurts my hips, or all of the above, then you can come over onto your back and draw your legs in towards you. That you can go underneath your knees or around your knees. The added bonus of being on your back is that you can do a little massage for the back of the body. So child's pose seems like a pose that we all could do, but it's not great for everybody. In fact, it's not comfortable, and it probably, for many, swings too far over to the discomfort and pain side of things. So wherever you happen to be, just take another few more breaths here. Or if possible, stay here for a few more breaths, moments. And then make your way over to your back if you're not there already. And once on your back, take your arms out to the sides. Come back to, so your feet can be on the ground. You can find that level pelvis. And is it possible to lift up your legs and keep your pelvis still level? That's the trick. And then just a little rotation through the body with both legs. A little bit of side to side. And then back into the middle, last time pulling your legs towards you, hands around your shins or underneath your knees, maybe even curling your head away from the floor. And then come back down. Arms can go back out. Feet can come down together or one at a time. Lift up your pelvis, anchoring through your shoulder blades, and then lengthen your pelvis away from you. So we're heading into Shavasana. If you want to get some props, just pause and go get some props to make yourself comfortable. Here is where I would love for you to be comfortable. So when I lay my low back down, I feel like, or when I lay my pelvis down, I feel like I've lengthened my low back. And then I can take my legs out one at a time or slide them out together. And as you settle into your place of rest, once again, feel your body being held by the earth. Continue to allow your mind to rest in the awareness of your body. Because this was a short practice, it'll be a short Shavasana. But if you want to, pause and go for as long as you want. Hear the sound of my voice. Let your body find its way. How does it want to move? Maybe it wants to stay here longer. Maybe it's not just your body, it's your mind and your body and your heart. Maybe you deepen your breath a little bit first and see how your body expands. Then maybe your limbs want to participate and come into a stretch and a yawn and a bending of your knees and a shifting of your hips to turn. You can stay on your side for a little while, or you can come up. And I want to say thanks for joining me today. Enjoy your day, evening, whatever time of day it is. Thanks for coming.